mother says he was a normal, happy boy until he became obsessed with black metal music.
Rock and roll!
Sounds like Christian Rick.
Heavy metal music. Groups promote satanic worship.
They're anti-peace and anti-life.
Welcome back to the Metal Face Podcast, the podcast where each week we discuss 3 metal albums. This is episode 5, and we'll be discussing this week, and bear with me on this one, Gruzja's album Jeszcze, Mamy, Pomysłu.
Nice.
Thank you.
That was good.
That was a lot of practice.
Yeah.
We'll also be discussing Boss Keloid's album Melted on the Inch, and we'll also be discussing Trivium's album Ascendancy. Before we get into those albums, joining me I have Josh. Josh, say hello.
Hello, Ben.
Also joining me we have Tom. Tom, say hello.
Hey, Ben. How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. Not bad. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
I
think
bet, yeah.
safe to say this has been a pretty good week.
Mm.
Oh, yeah?
We had an announcement earlier this week regarding the coronavirus lockdown. It's been going on for past 500 years or something like that?
Feels like it, yep.
Yeah, it's about right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We were born in the lockdown, and we shall die in the lockdown.
So for anyone listening in the future, we've just found out that on the 21st of June, all current legal restrictions on social distancing are going to be dropped.
Yes.
And the festival season can start. We can start going out, hugging our friends, and spitting in each other's faces like we always used to do in the good old days.
We miss so much.
Not only that, but just today, Reading and Leeds Festival announced that they will be going ahead this year, which bodes pretty fucking well.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's great news. Like, as soon as we heard that, I think everyone sort of breathed a sigh of relief that we might actually get a bit of a summer this year.
Yeah, well, and it's good to know that we've got something to work towards. I mean, I myself know that I need to get Mosh Pit ready and maybe shed some of the pounds that I put on over lockdown.
How do you
get in shape a little bit?
So you need to get into shape and maybe like practice taking blows to the head? Is that like part of
What I'm
Mosh Pit
planning to
preparation?
do is
guys,
just tackle my wall every day when I get up in the morning.
this is a potential, I think, monetization route for Metalface, because we could, alongside our obviously amazing podcast, we could sell workout plans to get Mosh Pit body ready.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. I thought you were going to say we were going to get people to sponsor us to get Mosh Pit ready and then give all the money to, like, maybe, I don't know, the Save Our Venues campaign or something. We could do that, right? Listeners, if you're willing to sponsor us to get in shape in time for the summer,
I don't think this is a good...
just let me know. Shoot me a message.
So, yeah, now that we've got a roadmap or an end date or, at least some kind of light at the end of the tunnel to this horrible lockdown we've been stuck in for so long, which bands do you guys want to see? I know I've got a pretty long list myself, so I want to hear who you guys are excited about.
Well, I mean, I've actually got tickets to, I think I've probably said this on the podcast before, Behemoth in London at the Brixton Academy in October. Actually, interestingly, after we talked about XDO the other week, I was looking them up and I was thinking, you know what? I'd really fucking like to see them. Guess what? They're playing in London.
Are they?
Really?
Guess when they're playing?
Same date as Behemoth?
Same day as Behemoth.
Oh, fuck. Well, you're free to go to Behemoth, but I'm going to be worshipping at the altar of Mars, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our decision's already made because I've already got my Behemoth ticket. I'm glad I didn't have to make that decision, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. Slightly tough one, although Behemoth being one of my favourite bands, they're not going to disappoint. That said, there's plenty of bands that I'd love to see this year. I remember right before the lockdown happened, I had tickets to see Korpiklani, and they were actually one of the first gigs that I saw get cancelled as a result of this. So that would be a great one. That would wrap everything up nicely if I could go see them this year. What about you, Ben? Is there anyone you'd like to see this year?
I think I'm still like just reeling from the fact that we're actually going to go anywhere. Like, I mean,
I know.
I would see anything right now. Like, I just want to leave the house.
Any band.
I just want to see a fucking busker.
Yeah, honestly, but it's it's really made me like. We've obviously got our like Mystic Fest and Bloodstock tickets. I think I might get an Arctangent ticket now that we know that.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to go ahead. That's in August,
that's
so
a
that's
good point,
safe.
yeah.
But yeah, man, like I just want to get back out there. I would see literally anything. I'll watch Paint Dry as a group if it means we can be around other human beings. Like,
I'm looking forward to just being in a metal pub. For
sure.
In London, we've got Devonshire Arms, got the World's End, and of course you've got the Black Heart as well. In Bristol, there's the Griffin, and hopefully the Crown and the Hatchet opening up again. And I just can't wait to go and sit in there and listen to some fucking music and just get pissed.
it's been so long. It's been way too long.
It's been far too long, far too long.
I can't wait to pay £6 for a pint.
It's been so long that we've had to recreate our conversations over a podcast rather than just having them after several
To be
pints.
fair, do you know what? This would never have actually come together without lockdown. So maybe that's one good thing about it. We put it off for 5 years. It took a global pandemic for us to finally get our shit together and actually make a podcast.
What about you, Josh? What activities are you looking forward to after the 21st of June?
What activities? Oh, so everything involving outdoors and seeing people. Band-wise, after last week, I really want to see Doom of Wargo.
Yeah, man, yeah.
If they could
they're
just...
playing at Bloodstock.
Are they? Well, I'm getting paid in one day, so...
That paycheck's going straight on a bloodstock.
Straight on the Bloodstock.
Choice.
Best place for it.
Yeah, like Ben was saying, I think Arctangent would be cool. I'll see basically anyone. I just want to...
Who's at Arctangent this year? Give me the top headliners, the bands I might have heard of.
Boss Keloid?
Are they really?
Yeah, they are.
God damn. Well, we don't want to play our cards too early and reveal what we think of Boss Keloid.
Yeah, who else is playing at Arctangent?
We've got a pretty strong lineup. There's Opeth and Cult of Luna. It's the two kind of big ones.
Yeah.
Cult of Luna. We did them for one of our practice episodes. They were great.
Yeah, and they've just come out with a new album, and I'm loving it.
You were saying it was really good, weren't you, Ben?
Yeah, I'm really into it. Really,
Let's
really
check it
into it.
out.
Really? Excellent.
We've also got Tesseract.
I always want to see Tesseract, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big, this is perhaps a bit esoteric, I'm a big Dan Tompkins fan. He's the singer of Tesseract, and he was involved in a band called Sky Harbor for a while, who are kind of international.
I've heard of Sky Harbor.
They're really cool. I'd like to go with them someday in the future. They're an international collaboration, kind of based in India and then across the rest of the world as well.
Oh, cool.
Do kind of like proggy stuff. They're cool. But also, we've got, for you guys, Alcest.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Alcest. I'd love to see Alcest. There's a lot of bands here. I don't want to keep listing so many off, but like Perturbator would be amazing.
No, Relative
but
Massive for me would be really cool.
There's so many good bands here. So another good festival to go to, right? And the fact that we know that it will be going ahead is just such a relief. And it feels like you can finally start planning.
Yeah.
The way they're talking about it, they're saying like this is an irreversible sort of release from lockdown, which sounds like pretty fucking good news to me, you know?
Yeah.
So the only, I do want to temper this slightly, I don't want to rain on anyone's parade, but only possible caveat is that the dates that have been given are the earliest dates they'll consider reopening. So they want to give a 5-week gap in between each new relaxation to see the effect on the overall like epidemic.
Yeah,
So,
I know we should be realistic and bear that in mind, but I just can't help but get giddy.
Absolutely.
You've got to have a bit of hope at some point.
I am super
Hope
hopeful.
and faith,
I just wants to kind of caveat that. But no, I agree. I am so fucking hyped.
And presumably the pressure will be mounting to such an extent by that point that they are, well, it might be foolish not to go ahead with it.
Well, we'll see. I just
Maybe.
hope that in 6 months' time I'm in a field somewhere too pissed to know what I'm doing.
Feeling really hungover.
That's the thing. Like, one of the things that I've missed the most about normal life during coronavirus is just that thing of being in a pub, a metal pub, and going outside and just chatting to strangers.
I mean, we haven't been able to do that sort of thing. Like, even last summer, it was so
not really.
restrictive. Like, there were a couple of places where, me and Tom might have gone where they weren't really following the rules.
But even then, we still erred on the side of caution, didn't we? And we didn't really meet anyone new in a big way.
Yeah.
There is just a certain joy to meeting a random person at a show and talking about music with them. Like, you've got that kind of connection
absolutely.
with a complete stranger.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the things that I always loved about this kind of music was it was always just such a great way to make friends and form connections and things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really can't wait to talk to someone other than you two.
Well, the feeling is now mutual.
Damn. I can't wait to talk to someone in addition to you two.
Oh,
How
thanks,
about
Tom.
that?
Yeah, always got to one up.
say that, you
I stand by my original statement. Another thing I've done in preparation for the escape from lockdown is I bought a massive map of the UK. Like, it's taking up basically the whole back of my door.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and I've bought those like sticky labels.
Yeah.
And I've basically been labeling up like loads of places that I want to go to. I bought a car last year and wasn't really able to make a use out of it. So, I'm a big fan of road trips.
Well, something that we started doing in 2019 was just going to see bands, even if they were playing nearby, just picking somewhere a little bit further away to go and see them.
Yeah, so like if they're playing in Bristol and Leeds, let's go to Leeds.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw Idols in London as well. And that was a good little day out in London, going to Camden and stuff.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, that sounds great. I'm looking forward to seeing this car of yours. Is it like a big fucking metal kind of car? Is it like black? It's like a black saloon car or something.
It's red. That's close, right?
Oh, that's all right. Yeah,
that's
that's all right.
the other
Except
metal
for
The
colour.
second best choice.
Yeah.
It's a very sensible hatchback. It's great fuel economy.
Oh yeah, how many miles to the gallon, mate?
Yeah, it's
That's important stuff to consider in this uncertain economy.
But no, it would be great to jump in that and go up to Bloodstock, put on some fucking goat snake, and just ride those waves.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I love a good road trip, and I can't wait till we would just
sure.
pile in there and finally
Anywhere.
go.
Just go.
Yeah,
Anywhere
yeah.
again.
Oh man, we've got to think about making like a driving song playlist.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
our listeners can give us some recommendations. What's the best driving song out there?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I've made a couple of playlists myself, but, you know, you can only listen to Unfortunate Son so many times before you...
I think Nightcrawler on that on Painkiller, the Judas Priest album that we listened to the first episode. Nightcrawler is a great driving
A lot
song,
of Priest
yeah.
makes
Sure.
good driving music, to be fair.
Yeah.
If you're going
Absolutely.
fast, I think it's probably quite good. You don't want that if
You're breaking the speed limit. Well, that's another thing, is at some point in the future, we're hoping to road trip to Germany, right?
Yeah,
On
right.
Autobahn.
That would be amazing. That's
Yeah?
maybe not
I
a
think-
this year plan.
No, definitely not. That's a future plan. But Cologne is somewhere I'd love to go, and I think we should just keep an eye on what are some bands playing in Cologne, and maybe we can go and check that out.
That'd be
Yeah.
sweet.
But yeah, lots to look forward to after June 21st.
Absolutely.
Just hope it happens. Hope it hits that date.
We can finally have
yeah.
new stories to tell instead of
Yeah,
retelling the same
exactly.
ones.
Yeah.
Season 2 is going to have a lot of more entertaining anecdotes in it.
Yeah,
Fingers crossed.
that's true, because we are thinking of taking a couple of weeks off in between seasons, and I think we should spend that time going to gigs and getting pissed and doing stupid things.
Building up some funny stories for
That's
you
the
guys.
only risk, is
Yeah.
that we don't survive until season 2 once we get out.
Well, I think statistically speaking, at least one of us will survive.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, God.
Whoever drinks the least.
The In Memoriam episode where we have to...
Oh, Jesus.
We'll be putting the call out for a new host.
No, it's true. As soon as I saw June the 21st, I was like, what? Book that off work. Book my funeral June 23rd.
Oh yeah, that whole week I'm going to try and take off. Just
I think the whole country is going to try and take that week off.
Yeah, I know. But then I was also thinking maybe I should try and get the Friday of that week off. But then maybe that Monday is going to be like a Friday. I don't know.
there is a petition on change.org to make that Monday a bank holiday.
Is that
I
really?
think
Yeah.
they should. I really think they should.
Just be chef kiss, as you say, Ben.
Yeah.
Any civil servants who work in whatever committee or organisation it is that decides when the bank holidays are.
The bank holiday department needs to get on this.
The Ministry of
finger
Bank
out.
Holidays.
Josh, if only we knew some civil servants, man. Then we could sort it.
Should we talk about our first album?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so speaking of bands we'd like to see later in the year, there's a band that I've gotten into a lot recently. This is Gruzja, Jeszcze, Mamy, Pomysłu. So Gruzja are an experimental black metal band from Poland. Their music is a mix of straight up black metal with these kind of ambient synth moments and a kind of really danceable punk drum beat, as well as a really wide vocal variation. They have 3 different vocalists on this album, really mixes it up. They're a hard band to find too much information about online, but they seem to be part of a sort of movement of experimental black metal from Poland that also includes bands like Biesi and Odrasa that incorporate this sort of avant-garde, industrial and extremely performative elements into their music, which is otherwise black metal. Now see, while a lot of black metal is concerned with elemental sort of spiritual ideas, as well as your typical metal themes of warfare and religion, this movement appears to be more concerned with themes of like nightlife, alcoholism, sexuality, even drag culture, addiction, and kind of general life in Eastern Europe. Now, all these bands sing in Polish, so I could be wrong, but that's definitely the impression I get reading around these bands. Either way, this is definitely not your typical black metal by any stretch of the imagination. I actually got into this stuff pretty recently, and being in London in the midst of a freezing January, in the midst of a lockdown, no less, it made a pretty strong impression. And I've got to ask, what did you guys think?
I was really pleasantly surprised. I kind of assumed it wouldn't be for me, but I mean, this isn't the kind of music I'd listen to on a regular basis just because I think it's just stylistically a bit different from my kind of normal set of tastes. But I was really impressed with this album. I thought it was really cool. As far as black metal goes, it's really listenable.
It's super different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you say this doesn't match up with your sensibilities necessarily. I've got to say this exactly matches up to my sensibilities.
Yeah, I gotta say for me, this was a really hard one to like evaluate. I started the week kind of liking it, and then about halfway through the week, I started to really dislike it.
Really?
By the end of the week, I really like it.
Yeah.
It's been a really weird
that.
journey with this, and I think I agree with Josh said. It's not the kind of stuff I'd usually listen to, and I don't know whether or not I would put it on regularly just to have on in the background or something. You know, I listen to a lot of music while I'm working.
Yeah.
But having said that, in the last couple of days, there's been a couple of songs that have been really stuck in my head, which I have wanted to, like, I've been on, like, walks, and I've been thinking, when I get home, I really want to listen to that Gruzja song.
Yeah, there's
Cool.
something about their music, I think, where it's hitting something that's so completely unique that quite often I am like, I just have to listen to this again, like right now,
Yeah.
just to remind myself of like the experience of listening to that band.
It's, in a way, quite catchy, really, isn't it? It really reminded me of Rammstein in parts.
Really?
Yeah, like...
That's unusual. I don't see that.
I think it was the songs like, and apologies to the nation of Poland,
Yeah, we'll get that up early.
Kro-
The pronunciations are going to be awful.
Krolawi Zwizerat? Zwizerat.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Zwizerat.
know that one, yeah.
Zwizerat.
I like the technique you're going with, Josh, of definitely doing it wrong. So that, yeah.
Confidently doing it wrong, yeah.
Listen, if confidently doing it wrong isn't, that's the only thing I've got.
Josh, I'm just poking fun because mine's going to be worse. So don't worry about it.
It's true.
I think what they do in that song is it just like dives into the sound, right, and then it sort of pulls back and goes like a slow kind of beat with some singing over the top, and then all the guitar like whoomp like rushes back in again. I see that similarity to Rammstein actually. Yeah,
I guess I was thinking also some of that earlier Rammstein earlier stuff, which is more synthy. It has that kind of dark wave crossover there.
Oh, that's true actually, because some of their early stuff, like Herzlied, it's almost like it's spoken word in a very gruff,
Industrial, yeah.
foreign language, over this kind of strange electro beat.
I think one of the big things for me when I was listening to this week, I started off expecting it to be a black metal band. And I think coming at it from that point of view, I wasn't really enjoying it because I was expecting it to be black metal. But it definitely comes from a different direction. And I'm interested to know if they consider themselves to be black metal or just something else entirely.
That is a good point.
Well, the funny thing is, I heard them first on Black Metal Promotions, a YouTube channel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that some of the comments were sort of saying, this isn't really black metal. Some were saying, this is doing such interesting stuff with black metal. It seems to me, the way they come across, I can't imagine that they do stick that strongly to a genre. But there's also it very clearly aligns with black metal more than any other metal genre.
When I watched a video of them on YouTube, like halfway through the week, because I was curious if they had any live videos. Because I was so let me just take a step back. I started looking up videos because I couldn't quite work out what was going on in the music. And then I looked up the band member list, and they had 3 people listed just as vocalists, and a 4th member also with a vocal credit. And I was like, so there's a lot of singers in this band, what the hell are they what's going on here?
Yeah.
So I looked up a video of them, and then that kind of changed my perspective on them, because they have like the synthesizer board like in the middle of a stage, the guitarist off to the side, drummer in the back, and then there's like 3 or 4 guys almost doing like a hype man kind of role, like in costume.
That's really
which
fascinating.
really changed my perspective on the band.
It kind of looks like you're watching like a hip-hop group or something, doesn't it? You got these 3 guys up the front singing and like sort of getting the crowd going and stuff, and other people at the back sort of doing the instrumental parts.
Yeah, and that really changed my perspective on it.
Yeah, and I love that kind of vocal variation where you've got the kind of really sort of punk vocals, you've got typical sort of screeching kind of black metal vocals, you've got that extremely kind of, I don't know, I think it's an effect, it's like sounds really low down and like distorted, and you've also got that sort of really like whining and like painful sort of singing as well.
I think that's the singing that was hitting my ear wrong at the start of the week. But then as I listened to it more, I think that's the sort of thing that grows on you. Like the more you listen to it, the more you kind of get it in its place. And
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of seeing bands live, that sounds like a fascinating live show as well.
Definitely.
It doesn't stray so far that it can't be considered very much like thoroughbred kind of metal.
Yeah.
But it's just like metal that's just really willing to do new things.
Well, coming off the back of our black metal episode last week, like one of the things we said is how much experimental stuff is going on here, and how different genres kind of come into it. But it's almost like it's not like black metal is necessarily moving in a direction where it's pulling in these other things, but maybe other things are reaching out and taking things from black metal.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
which is maybe where they've come from, I think, because they are so distant from the original kind of.
That's a really good point.
Interestingly enough, I think their first album is much heavier and much more kind of bona fide sort of metal with these sort of electronic kind of elements and things.
Oh, right.
And then their most recent one, which is called Conflict, which is a split with another group I can't remember the name of, is much more kind of on the electronic side of things. It's almost like this kind of thing of them getting slightly lighter as they go on, but there's still enough of that metal in there in their latest release that I'm confident that they're going to keep doing interesting stuff. But typically, I think this kind of thing always happens, is the album between the lighter stuff and the heavier stuff. This album is where it really works for me.
Yeah, you've said that before, and I've been paying attention to that, and I think you're onto something.
I think you're right in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think for me, this is like a mix of so many things that I like. It's got the sort of indie punk thing. It's got the sort of 80s new wave kind of vibe. It's upbeat in some moments. It's horribly bleak in others. It's like the love child of Joy Division and Dark Throne and that couldn't sit in a better place for me, genre-wise.
Yeah, and do you know what?
Yeah.
You're saying that if we start talking more about like the sound and what the album actually sounds like, I think all those influences go together to kind of create this feeling that I had throughout listening to it, which is it's kind of like a night out that's got like kind of a darker twist to it, and it's kind of you're maybe a little bit too far gone, and everything's a bit hectic and hazy, and you're a bit dizzy. But then there's those moments of like fresh air when you're outside the club before you just, like run back in, and then you're just totally lost again.
There's a song by the band, they're a deathcore band, Amur, and the song has nothing to do with this, but the title reminds me of what you just said, Ben, and it's called "When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong." I feel like that sums up that vibe.
Yeah, I think it absolutely has that thing of, like we were saying, we keep saying black metal. I think it's maybe fair to say experimental black metal as like a distinction from that. You know?
So,
It's so different. It's got these avant-garde kind of elements. It sits in a different world, and for me, it does. Instantly, when I heard it, it was situating me in something that was about nightlife and about being around other people and being out in the world, rather than being lost in, nature and the fjords.
It's funny how music can give you that impression, because I did look up the lyrics and I had to Google translate them, honestly, to actually understand what they're about. But even before having done that, I kind of guessed that the music was about the sort of things you said, addiction, nightlife, alcohol, like, I think one of the words they use is like degeneracy or something, like that kind of lifestyle. And I kind of got that vibe before I even read the lyrics, but then once I read them, I was like, oh, it's funny how these things like kind of, they give you that impression without you even knowing.
Absolutely.
It definitely has the vibe of like, this is a really specific feeling, so this might sound weird, but like a kind of grungy, low-tech, cyberpunk kind of dystopia kind of feeling, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where it's like you're like in this like have you guys, I don't know if you've seen it, there's a TV show called Altered Carbon, where it's in this like really dystopian sci-fi future.
Oh yeah.
And it kind of has that vibe where it's like really low budget, like grimy world where everything's kind of like
Slightly
wrong and horrible, but like
body mods.
it has this really cool musical vibe to it. I really like it.
I've got to say, I've spent, I would say, a decent amount of time in Eastern Europe and really enjoyed the time that I've spent there. There is an aspect of it where it's slightly living in the remnants of the Soviet regime, and there's a darker aspect to it a lot of the time. And interesting, there was a comment on one of the videos, or the video of this album, that said, as a Ukrainian, I dig both Gruzja and Adrasa because both projects give a great perspective on the angst of living in an Eastern European country. It's not abstract sadness, it's just disgusting, depressing misery. I fucking love it.
God.
And I think... yeah, and I think it is dark and bleak, and I wonder whether our small taste of a world without quite so much freedom is part of the reason why this music is appealing to me so much right now.
That's interesting. I'm not like super up in the politics, like the culture of it, but I think you see in like some like sci-fi, particularly from like kind of like Russia and the like, it's got a kind of darker feel than a lot of like Western European productions.
Yeah,
so I wonder if it's the same kind of thing there, but through music. I wish I knew more about the topic so I could have a more educated reply.
Yeah, it's got to be right. They've got to be reacting to. You're not going to want to sing about magic and fantasy worlds when like your reality is so bleak, like it's got to be a reaction.
Definitely,
to that.
and we've talked about the politics of Poland before when we talked about Behemoth and the sort of blasphemy laws and stuff that they have there. It's probably worth saying that Biesi, one of the bands that are associated with this, their front, I suppose I would say front person, is drag queen, sort of 6 foot tall drag queen in a red dress with blue hair, and that in Poland is quite a big deal.
Yeah, definitely.
So they're marking out new territory with this kind of music.
I got to respect people who are at that edge and pushing those boundaries, because it is scary to be in a place where you can face real consequences for just being yourself, basically. Like you don't want to get too political or anything, but like that's just fucked up, right? I think we can all agree that as human beings.
Absolutely.
I think we can agree that freedom is good.
Yeah.
Cool. Metal Face Podcast endorses freedom.
Yeah, so there's a hell of a lot to say, obviously, around the scene and the sort of the culture that it's from. But let's talk about just the music. Were there any songs that really stuck out to you guys?
Yeah. So again, here's my attempt at pronouncing the song Josh pronounced earlier. Krawalvi Zvirat. That's definitely wrong. But yeah, I really liked that song. That's the one that I've come back to the most. I think it's got the catchiest kind of guitar part, and the vocals are really recognisable. Yeah. But I really liked the following track about 800 Zloty. I thought that was a really good song.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting one.
That's easier for me to say as well.
Yeah, not one of my favourites actually, but I thought it was cool. I think Keloid Tesseract, if we're going to call it that, was
If we're definitely wrong, then at least we can be confident.
At least be consistently wrong.
It's probably my favourite on the album. It's the one I keep wanting to listen to the most.
Yeah, same.
That and the first. So there's 3 parts of Jeszcze, Pomysłu, part 1, 2, and 3.
That's very good.
Yeah, the first one of those, I really like that as well. What a great opener. But quite aside from that, a quite different sounding song. The song, am I going to call it Grooze? I love that song. It's, to give you some context, it's a much more ambient, sort of punky, kind of almost new wave sort of feeling song. Very kind of low key with these sort of deep, strange vocals over the top, but weirdly uplifting.
Cool.
How about you, Josh? Any favourites on this one?
Yeah, so for me, it was part 3 of the 3-parter Tom mentioned.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to sidestep that whole
previously named track.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it. The first half in particular was really good, and it was a really strong song, and it was very listenable.
Yeah.
In a way that I kind of didn't expect it to be. And I've got a fun piece of trivia, actually, if you want, related to the spelling of Grooze, the second track you like, Tom. In the Zork text adventure games that came out on PC in like the 80s and 90s, there was a horrible monster called a Grue, spelled Grue, that lived in the dark.
Oh, yeah.
Went into the dark without a candle, it would eat you, and you'd become its dinner.
Ooh.
And that was quite, yeah. So it's small.
Do you think that might be related? That's possible, isn't it?
I don't know.
It's unlikely, but it's possible.
I feel it's unlikely, but I just wanted to bring up a piece of nerdy trivia. Similar spelling to a thing in a video game.
Yeah.
But strong connection, I feel.
I think this has been a tough one. I think it's so experimental, it's so out there, that it's been hard to almost, I think, sum up my thoughts. I think there's a lot that more I could say about it, and I could talk about this a lot, and I want to listen to it more. I want to hear more stuff that's going on in this scene as well. It's really interesting. It's really different.
It is something completely that sounds to me sort of completely new. You know?
I'm surprised, honestly, that this has taken you so much, Tom. Like, I don't know.
I don't want to oversell how much I'm into it in terms of, I'll be interested to see how I feel about it in a few months' time.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think it's one of it's this sound that I've come across at the moment that is particularly appealing to me right now. And
in the current context.
as I say, it's gotten so many elements of music that I love, and so it's for me, it's all coming together to create something that's like, I'm currently finding this genre completely addictive.
Is this another one of those times when you're just amazed that the music that you exactly want exists?
Exactly. Yeah. This is borderline hitting a point of I used to get very obsessed with bands and with just things in general and go through these phases, and I think this is definitely a phase where what I want to listen to right now is experimental Polish black metal, and
Nice.
I love it. Brilliant.
Okay, guys, well, if we already move on to our second album this week, we're talking about Boss Keloid, Melted on the Inch. So Boss Keloid from Wigan, England. They've been active from 2010, and in that time they've produced 4 studio albums. They're described as a sludge prog metal band, which, just really quickly for the uninitiated, sludge metal is a particular flavour of metal with connections to doom and hardcore punk, typically categorised by contrasting slow and fast tempos and heavily down-tuned guitars. A lot of my kind of choices end up falling into sludge metal. I think it is quite a hard genre to define. So back to Boss Keloid. Today we're talking about their 4th album, Melted on the Inch, which was released in 2018. With each album, I think they've leaned more and more into their progressive elements. As you go back through their catalogue, they're a bit heavier, but you can always see those elements were there, and they've just really come out on this album. But I also don't think they've lost that metal side of...
No, not at all.
So yeah, there's no hiding that I absolutely love this album. This is going to be...
This is a big week for gushing, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. Someone try and stop me, please. Someone else. Tom, what did you think of this?
Well, so if you remember, when we did the lost episode of the Metal Face podcast, which were recorded in, I want to say, 2019, 2018?
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, so we recorded that probably over Skype or something, right before me and you, Ben, went to see Boss Keloid play at the Exchange in Bristol. And so I checked them out a little bit before that, because I remember I showed you Lung Mountain, one
Yeah.
of their sort of hit songs, when we were at uni together. When we were going to see them in Bristol, I thought, oh, I better catch up, see what they've done most recently, because I was thinking it probably is going to be recent stuff. And so I had listened to this album, and I gotta say, I didn't really like it. I didn't like it, and I found it really sort of uneven and a bit slow and a bit too jazzy and stuff.
Dare you.
However,
No, friendship over, it's too late.
However, when I re-listened to it in this last week, I've got to say, man, this is a really, really fucking good album. Like, way better than I expected. Way better than I remembered.
Vindication.
Yeah. I felt as though there's so much going on in this album. I was trying to count how many different instruments I could hear.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not different instruments, maybe it's, effects or whatever.
Yeah.
But there are so many different sounds on this album. But it doesn't become overcomplicated, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think something they do really well is, and this is particularly what made me like the album, was it's almost like they start out simple, they stack the sounds up one by one until they it's all going, and then they take it all away, and then they bring it all back in like whoomph, and it kicks off in some really crashing, thunderous chorus. And so I feel like I can see why you like it, Ben. I feel like I'm going to guess this is an album that Josh really liked as well. But Josh, am I wrong in that?
Can I also just really get in there? I also thought Drift would like this. So, just when I picked this, I was like, at least I'll have one supporter. And the fact that I got Tom to like it, Josh, what did you think?
As much as I hate to say it, you have both completely been correct. Yeah,
It's almost like we used to live together.
I'm just upset that you can predict my music taste so accurately.
Yeah.
No, it was really cool. I really liked it. There were so many things going on. It was just like the riffs were really good, and there was jazzy, proggy stuff, and there was the vocal.
Yeah.
Can I just talk about the vocals for a second? Because he's got a really cool voice. It doesn't sound like normal kind of. Yeah, but also there's the bit where they layer up the different tracks of him singing. There's a couple of him at once, and it's kind of echoey.
Yeah.
It sounds really big. And
It's a huge sound, isn't it? Like
absolutely.
And like you say, there's like those progressive, like kind of fairly, we like this word, noodly in parts.
Noodly.
Like it
Yeah,
kind of
but
goes
it
off
works.
a bit.
Jazzy as fuck, like literally almost like wooden sounding drums. Like, what are those little sticks that they used to give you in school that they told you was an instrument? You just tapped it together.
Yeah, you thought you were making music.
Chopsticks or
claves.
something. What's that?
Claves.
Claves. Yeah, sure, claves. Why not? I feel like it had so much of that sort of unusual clickety-clackety jazzy as fuck drums. Not something I'm normally a fan of.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you actually end up liking it, Tom.
Yeah,
But
so am I, Tom. So
obviously
it's
I'm
quite
pleased.
slow in places.
And to be fair, the songs are quite long, and there are quite long sections which are quite drawn back and aren't so heavy metal. But I think something for me, which this isn't unique, it's not like some incredible thing that I've come up with, but I love contrasting music. I love like really slow, quiet bits, and then it just comes crashing back down, like you said, and there's so much going on at once that it really gives the heavier parts more power.
Now, see, there I can definitely weigh in, because one of the things that attracted me to metal in the first place was the fact that it didn't slow down. Like, I used to like a lot of rock music where it was like heavy chorus and then it goes back to like a, oh, come on, hurry up, where's the good bit, basically.
Yeah.
And what I liked about metal was that it was like all go, start to
You
finish.
know what? Yeah, and this is really hard because it's not like I want all music to be like this. This album, much like you were saying with Gruzja, this ticks all my boxes. But I think if it was slightly different, I could really not like it. Like they've just really hit everything perfectly for me. And
they were like, when they devised this album, they had a picture of you up on the wall. And they were like, this is what we want to hit.
this guy, this is our target
It was
audience.
like a compilation of faces, like in a crime drama when they're looking for a serial killer.
It's interesting you guys say that about the album and not about the shrine they've built to Ben. But because my only criticism of the album was that there are a few songs where I was like, it just felt a little bit too long. So I think I was with Tom a little bit there, where it's like, I liked the fast bits, and I liked some of the slow bits, and as you guys know, I like some kind of contrast to music. I like bits with movements, and it gets faster and slower. Yeah. But, and this is a small but, it did feel like sometimes it would have been better if it was, more killer, less filler. But not, filler's too harsh, because it was never filler, it was all really good. Yeah. Well, it was if it was just the big riffs and the cool suit, I would have liked it a bit more, I think.
I'm just glad that they put 6 tracks on the album instead of 10.
Yeah.
I feel like every track was good and different, and they could have added in 4 more mediocre tracks, which Tool have been known to do.
Now, see, I almost would prefer like something that was like 8 tracks, so 2 more tracks, and every song slightly shorter. As much as I enjoyed this album, one thing that I had a gripe with definitely was like, if I wanted to listen back to one of these songs, it would just take like sometimes like such a long time to kind of get going. And the song fills up so much space. Now, with a song like, is it Chronosium?
Yeah.
Now, with that, I've got the patience for it. With some other stuff on the album, I was like, where is that killer chorus? Was it in this song? Or was it in this song? And I'm like, I'm going to have to scroll through for like 5 minutes until they get to the point where they actually hit that moment, you know?
I've listened to the album so many goddamn times that I kind of know them now.
You can tell you the exact second in the exact song.
I think it's definitely, I was thinking this earlier, it's an album that I could see you could like learn in, if you know what I mean, and know where everything is.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of thing where there's that one song that grabs you, and then it's easy to leave playing, and then before you know it, you've listened to it all the way through, and then you start to learn more and more parts of it. One other thing that I find really enjoy about Boss Keloid is their lyrics.
Yeah,
lyrics are really important to me in music. The lyrics on this album they're metaphorical, but they're clearly connected to reality, which is something I quite like, because it's not clear exactly what they're singing about. You can argue it's anything. You could argue it's just a story. You could argue it's about an addiction or a breakup or, loss, anything. But they have an empowering side to them, and it's sort of lifting you up to overcome whatever that problem is.
Now, see, I thought that was really fucking interesting, because it would be very easy to fuck this up. You know what I mean? Yeah. It would be very easy to put, like, for the message of the album to be like, believe in yourself, and for you to be like, fuck off, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? A sort of...
Yeah, don't lay it on too
self-help seminar,
One of those, like a self-belief, like, self-help seminar kind of thing. Easy to get wrong. But the sort of, the know thy path, like, don't question yourself kind of mentality of it. Yeah, I felt like it was handled in a really, just like a mature way, and it just fucking... really sold it.
Yeah, so the one of the lyrics is, day after day I take it in my stride, pass through the haze that taints my life, sing to the rhythm that keeps me alive.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's like sufficiently metaphorical without being like, you can do it. It's
a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think it probably helps that like the vocalist has such like a good voice that you're like, fuck yeah.
I want to do what this guy says. Yeah. I didn't have a very complex kind of set of feelings in this album. It was really good. The riffs are really cool. All the jazzy stuff was really cool. The only downside is some of the songs are a little bit long. I think maybe, there are just a few times where I'd kind of reach the skip button because it was like, okay, I want the next big riff now. I think, like you say, it's like the slow bits. I'm just like, I kind of just want the big riffs. I want the big vocals. I want a little bit of the stuff, the other progress to break it up. I think it is.
You've got to have patience with it a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, I'm an impatient bastard, so...
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Well, no, but to be fair, like 7 minutes is over twice, sometimes 3 times as long as a lot of songs, right?
Yeah.
7 minutes is a fairly long song, and I think pretty much every song on the album is 7 minutes. I think the shortest one is 6.
And even as so this album's 40 minutes, it's the exact same length as Jeszcze, Pomysłu.
Getting faster.
I don't know. I feel like one thing I would have liked to have heard more from Boss Keloid in this album is a song that was significantly different to the other songs. Something that stood out. Something that was like... Because definitely Chronosium, I think, is an excellent song. And going on through the album, I was like, they're all hitting about that level. But I was like, I wanted something to hit just a little bit different. And I would love to know what this band would do if they had just like a 3-minute time limit, If they just had to write just a banger. Lead us in with something slow, deliver on the fucking chorus, weird verse, another amazing chorus, fade out on something crazy, Like, I would love to see something, a condensed and compacted version of the sound.
I do feel though maybe it wouldn't, maybe it wouldn't be Boss Keloid anymore if it was too condensed.
That's
like if it was just like verse, chorus, done with a bit of prog bits sprinkled in, that wouldn't be the same, would it? It's kind of, I think the thing we're complaining about is the thing that makes it unique as well,
You're completely right.
Like, that's the kind of sludge vibe, isn't it, where they draw it out a bit.
It's what sets them apart, yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about this on a couple of the albums. We've talked about having an idea and doing it really well and just doing that for your whole album versus having like a series of different ideas. And I think, to me, obviously, I've listened to the album countless times. The songs are quite defined to me, but I can totally understand how, you're like, okay, noodly bit, heavy bit, noodly bit. That sort of that repetition, you kind of, get lost in it a little bit.
I think this is the thing with metal in general, I think we've all experienced this, is that if you've got a unique sound, if you've got a defined sound, it's not going to be for everyone, and that's fine. That's, you know,
Definitely,
that's if you make music that's for everyone, it will end up pleasing no one. So it's kind of cool in a way that we all appreciate the really good bits, but kind of diverge a little bit on the exact structure, because it shows the quality of it, but also shows that it's a unique idea.
I would be really interested to revisit Boss Keloid, one of their earlier albums.
Absolutely.
Because funnily enough, this is a band that appeals to you in a massive way, Ben. But it was also, I think I showed you the first song by them.
Yeah, no, you
So
totally
clearly
did.
there's something that's hitting both of us to some extent, despite having not exactly the same taste.
And I think as you trace their albums back, they are a bit heavier. Their second album, The Calming Influence of Teeth, that has some shorter tracks on it, but it's a lot heavier, and I think the prog elements are less defined, so it doesn't appeal to me as closely, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys thought.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So maybe, in the future.
That'd be a great one to check
Absolutely.
out.
So I'm just going to totally rebel against the format here. I can't pick favourite tracks. I love the album start to finish,
Like it all?
I really do. Sorry,
Damn, man,
I'm
that's
doing
pretty
that.
good.
That's cool.
I love this album start to finish. What do you guys think?
For me, Chronosium, just absolutely everything right. 10 out of 10, know what to say.
I've got to agree. I think it's very hard to pick a favourite track. The whole album is good, very uplifting, incredibly well done. These guys are excellent. As I say, it doesn't quite tick all the boxes for me. Like, I'd like it to be a little tighter in some places, but that's just me being an impatient grindcore fan, But I gotta say, Chronosium is. I have a list of songs that I've listened to over the course of the year, and normally by the end of the year, I'm hitting like sort of, I don't know, about 150 kind of favourite songs or something. This is on that list, definitely. Chronosium, excellent.
I'm always happy when I can find something that can overcome that impatient grindcore mentality.
The ingrained.
And I'm really looking forward to grindcore undermining your patience.
Shortening my attention
Testing
span
your patience.
every week.
So now, doing away at the controversy between you two and uniting you together in your opinions, we've got another album, Ascendancy by Trivium.
Oh!
Trivium are a metalcore / kind of thrash band from Orlando, Florida, who've been around since about 1999. So they're 22 years old this year.
Wow.
They've got 9 studio albums, and today's album, Ascendancy, is their second, released in 2005. Their most recent album, What the Dead Men Say, came out just last year in 2020. What a year.
What a year.
What a great year.
So, Trivium are nothing if not controversial, and whilst they've got a couple of questionable songs in their back catalogue, I think a lot of the hate they get is pretty unjustified, to be honest. There's a lot of Trivium songs I really like, and I think a lot of their music is really solid, and let's be honest, they are also one of the biggest metal bands around right now. I headline all kinds of festivals.
They're doing something right,
Exactly.
man. Sure.
I think whether you want to admit it or not, everyone does like at least one Trivium song on average. Just looking back now at the list of albums we've done already, this is probably one of the most commercial sounding bands we're talking about. But this is kind of some of their earlier stuff, and the Ascendancy's quite early on in their kind of musical career. So I'm quite interested to hear what your guys' take on it is. Did you like it? Did you think they lived up to the reputation, or did you enjoy it? What was the feeling? What was the vibe?
So I'll start. So back about 10 years ago, I actually used to listen to 2 of Trivium's albums quite a lot, which was actually both Ascendancy and Shogun. I had them both on my metallic purple iPod Nano, which was
nice,
very cool.
Yeah, nice. Throwback.
So listening to it again, I instantly recognised a lot of the tracks. This was probably one of my closest brushes with metalcore back in my past. But, I stepped back from that ledge. No, I mean, so the vocal style, right, is right there in the metalcore territory. The music, I think, is a bit more thrash, heavy metal and stuff.
Yeah.
Listening back to it again, just in summary, I quite enjoyed it. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure, but yeah, I did like
right,
it.
yeah.
That's interesting.
What do you think, Tom?
Well, we grew up at the right time for Trivium, right?
Yes.
We were of the age group that, as we were sort of in our teens, Trivium were doing really fucking well. We're talking sort of late 2000s, particularly. I think, I mean, they're still doing really well now, but I think they were there was a lot of focus on them during that period of time. So I was familiar with them while I was growing up and heard a lot of their music around. It wasn't for me then, and it's I struggle with it now to some extent. I think, I don't know how to put this. I think to some extent it's passed me by,
Yeah.
I think if I'd listened to it back then, I would have the same reaction that you do, Ben, of it's a guilty pleasure. Let me just put my cards on the table here and say, I love My Chemical Romance a lot. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty fucking reasonable to say that that's a band that's kind of easy to laugh at in all sorts of ways. They're very of their time. They haven't aged that well. I think I feel a little bit like that with Trivium, the distinction being that I don't like Trivium very much.
I do wonder where I would be if I hadn't listened to this before.
Yeah, a guilty pleasure which gives you no pleasure, I can imagine, is not very good.
You just feel bad.
But I'd like to talk for a second about the actual songs, because I think there's a lot of music on this album which is just, absent of any nostalgia, is pretty good. I think Pull Harder and Rain are both just good tracks, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think their style on this album in particular is very like lead heavy, you know, catchy riffs, solos.
Yeah, definitely.
Played very high, like on the guitar. It lends itself, like with the clean vocals, to be really catchy, get stuck in your head. And like, you know, again, I played it and was like, oh yeah, I remember this like chorus, and was like instantly singing along to it again.
And I know Metallica is an incredibly easy band to draw comparisons with, but this definitely gave me a sort of Black Album kind of vibe.
Really?
Not saying it's... I mean, I like the Black Album actually quite a lot, but I felt like this is the kind of band that couldn't exist without the Black Album. It's that mix of real genuine thrash with quite an accessible drum beat, and then also a mix of something that's like a little bit heavier vocals and a little bit sort of lighter vocals.
That's interesting. I'm just looking this up now, actually. Yeah, so Black Album came out in 91, and Trivium's first got together in 99, so they were really... You know, I guess they're all pretty young at the time. So they must have been really influenced by these kinds of bands.
And this is, when's this album out? Sorry, Josh?
2005.
2005, yeah. And they were pretty young guys at that point still, weren't they?
Yeah, I think Matt Heafy was 19, if I remember his...
Wow.
If I've added up things right from his Wikipedia page.
And now that's pretty fucking impressive. And I just want to put that before anything that I say later of like, you know, fucking good for these guys to have done so well so early on in their lives.
I cannot imagine being 19 and having that kind of success. No matter what you say about music, and I don't mean you, Tom, or you, Ben, I mean what no matter one says about the music.
The Queen.
No matter what the Queen thinks of Ascendancy, I think we can all agree it's impressive.
It's impressive that they have done so well.
Yes.
Now you're starting to turn it again. You're starting to make it sound like an insult.
So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what my experience of listening to this album was.
Go for it.
I was familiar with Trivium in passing, right? I'd heard like a lot of their songs. I actually remember that Pull Harder and the Strings of Your Martyr was one of the heavy songs that my brother had on his iPod.
Oh yeah.
That I used to listen to when I did a paper round. Yeah. So this goes way back to the beginning of my metal career, as it were, over 10 years ago or so.
Very bold of you to label it a career, but sure.
It is now. We got a podcast. So I went into this album and I was thinking, yeah, I'm gonna fucking hate this. And I gotta say, the way it started out, I was like, yeah, this is actually pretty good. You know, like the drums, they really kick in. It's really fast. It's really cleanly produced. The guitar parts, as you say, very lead heavy. There's just something that's kind of fun about listening to something like that. It reminded me of Metallica at points, the parts of Metallica that I liked, in fact, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was starting out on a pretty good track of it. And then it got to A Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation. And I gotta say, from that point onwards, I started to have issues with the album.
That's interesting.
I feel like the song under-delivered in every way that a metal song could under-deliver for me.
Okay.
And I don't want to be mean here, right? But it felt like a really powerless song. I wonder if that was maybe my first exposure to Trivium that really kind of stopped me from getting into them. For example, the bit at the end where they're sort of all shouting, hey, 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 over and over again, that seemed to lack the energy that you get from the average gang shout on a shitty punk record. Like, for fuck's sake, guys, put some fucking power behind it. There's one thing you need with metal, it's a bit of fucking passion. And at that point, I think my appreciation for the album dropped off. And I'm sorry to say it because, you know, good for them and all that kind of thing. Here's the thing, I don't know how to express this. They're a decent, heavy, fast, metallic band. Great. But the problem I have with them is that I think that the band themselves believe that the music is really heavy. And it's not that heavy. It's just alright. I don't know. It's like fucking rock music, man. What is this? And then another thing that really bothers me about this is, I don't know why, but I have this gripe with just in a song where somebody sings, like, for example, there's a lyric in one of these songs where somebody sings "Run Away" in a melodic voice, "Run away," and then instantly somebody afterwards comes in with a guttural vocal and goes "Run away." Almost as if they're second guessing themselves and being like, look, we can be emotional and melodic, but we can also be cool and heavy. And it's not even that fucking heavy. What the hell?
Well done, Josh. You've broken Tom.
Are you alright, Tom?
I don't know why it bothers me so much, man. Because I like really light and soft music, and I like really heavy music. But I don't like bands who aren't that heavy, who think that they're really heavy.
Wow, Tom. Just let it out. Let us know how you feel.
Don't hold back. Jeez.
I don't know what it is, man. I don't know. I wish I didn't feel like this because they're clearly doing well for themselves. And I'd love to go to a fucking packed show. You know how I feel about this sort of thing.
You're going to see them live, but you're going to be angry.
And maybe you'll have the Machine Head effect, where I don't like Machine Head for, I think, similar reasons, but when I saw them live, yeah, alright, good, but fucking hell, I'm not willing to pay for it. Sorry, God.
So, Tom, in summary, would see them for free and under no other circumstances.
Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah.
I'd take that, yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
God.
Ben, what are your feelings on this album?
It's hard to follow that. I was much more lukewarm on it, which is very hard to, do you know what?
Can you be passionately lukewarm? Oh yeah, you can. You write a Trivium album.
Oh boy! Oh my God!
I'm going to speak up now in defense.
Yeah, come on,
of this
Josh,
band, because no one else will.
Do it.
No one else will stand up and defend Matt Heafy and defend Trivium, okay? And, there's all this controversy, all this criticism. When Trivium do what Trivium does best, they lean into their riffs, and they lean into their drums, and they just go for it. They write some excellent music. Pull Harder is a fucking top-class metal song, and I will not hear anyone who says otherwise. I know that, as an album, perhaps, if you only like half the songs, it's not a great album. But when you hear the later things, like Declaration, and their later stuff, Light to Flies and things like that, later on in the album, it's still solid. I don't think that having a couple of... I don't like Gunshot to Head Trepidation or Dying in Your Arms much either. But I think the solid basis of the riffs, the solid basis of the drums, the solid basis of the energy is there. And I think that's what really drives the songs forward. I think that's what the energy is. That's why you go listen to Trivium. That's why you see Trivium.
It does make it a bit harder to enjoy some of it, because I think I know what Tom's saying, and for the Reddit users out there, it's a bit r/I am very badass.
But is this not the same as like we were saying a few weeks ago, where just because there are bad songs on the album or songs you don't like on the album doesn't mean the rest of the album's bad? Just because a band releases a new album that sells out or is shit or whatever,
no, for sure.
It doesn't mean the back catalogue has been deleted.
I think let me rephrase this. Perhaps is that I felt like I was sold on the idea of here's a few teenage guys writing some kick-ass songs and enjoying it, and I think they really delivered on Pull Harder and The String Is Your Martyr. Yeah, good for them. When it got to Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation or whatever the fuck it's called, I felt like they lost credibility for me somehow. I was just like, you guys don't really believe in what you're doing. And after that point, I was like, you just written another song because you want 13 songs on the album. Make it 8 songs, make them all as good as you can make them. Rather than just being like, well, let's just fill it up with halfway good songs.
Trivium, I think, in general, could do with cutting more songs. I think Shogun in particular, isn't there 20 songs on it or something?
Really? Now see, that
really
for
long.
me has a bit of the Metallica effect. St. Anger suffers from this problem as well, of you're writing something that's actually quite middle of the road and just sort of, background kind of thrash metal. You don't need to have more than 10 songs, in my opinion. I just think that music doesn't have that kind of longevity.
Yeah, but then isn't it just stuff you can put on in the background and just enjoy? Because you say, Josh, you said Shogun has more tracks, but I actually prefer Shogun because I prefer the sound of it. And when I put on Trivium, I just kind of want to let it play and just enjoy it. And I think that's what Shogun does really well versus Ascendancy, which I found just not as, like Tom said, there was a little bit where I was kind of like, this feels a little bit not serious. Whereas Shogun, I think, was a bit heavier and felt a bit more real. So, I don't know.
I agree. Shogun's much more I think mature album. Has got much stronger stylistic kind of feeling and a theme.
Perhaps I should check that out.
Yeah, I'd say the first track
I think you like it.
You start with Kirisuke Grow Men. That's a good song. I really like that song.
Okay.
I do think, though, just as kind of a defense counsel's closing statement
before we sentence them.
Before we sentence Trivium. I just want to say, I think the riffs the production, the drums, the vocals, and most of it. Core parts of the music. I think Stand Up Today, I think they sound really modern for 2005. You can hear that in songs like Declaration, you can hear that in songs like Rain, you can hear that in songs like Pull Harder. And I just feel that Trivium's unfairly maligned and that they've contributed a lot to the scene. And even though Matt Heafy might be easy to laugh at if you're on the internet,
If you're on the internet.
I just mean, everyone's a critic, right? It's easy to and I'm not accusing any of you guys of this because I think
No, it's okay.
But I think it's very easy for us to sit here and shit on the album or be like, blah 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 blah. I think particularly if we were talking about the Crusade, I'd be saying all sorts of mean things about it too because I don't like the Crusade. But I think it's very easy to sit here and we say these things about the album, but to actually produce something of this quality when you're like a teenager.
Yeah. No,
or
definitely.
early 20s. Like, I could barely fucking do anything.
I remember
when I was 19.
we were living together at that point.
We lived together. You
And
remember the
we
horror?
had a slug infestation that we didn't do anything about because we didn't do anything about it.
We had rats too.
No, we had mice. Did we ever confirm there were rats? The ants were my favourite though. Do you remember when they all crawled into that whiskey bottle and then we ran out of anything to drink, so we drank the whiskey?
I didn't drink the whiskey. You drank the whiskey. I
confirm
don't
that
even like whiskey.
Ants taste like surprisingly sharp.
And on that note, are there any favourite songs from the album, you guys?
Yeah, do you know what, Josh? I agree with you. I do. I think, I as much as I like to make fun, it's well played, it's well produced, it's catchy. I enjoyed listening to it. It's fun to join in on Tom's rants, but I did like it deep down.
Yeah.
So as the wait, are we gonna have the prosecution's closing statement?
I started out enjoying this album, and there's a good reason that I enjoyed this album at first. I think, as you say, well produced, well put together, talented fucking guys doing really well for themselves, especially at that age. And Paul Hard and the Strings of Martyr, for what it is, which is not my kind of music, but for what it is, I really appreciate it, and I actually think it's a solid song that I would occasionally, I think, put on. That said, they just lost credibility for me at some point in this album.
Clearly.
And I think I'm just like a little bit disappointed by that because I was really hoping that I would turn around and be like, actually, you know what, Trivium? It might be a bit funny to laugh at, but not so bad. But instead I thought, damn.
So Tom is not angry but disappointed. Ben, what are your feelings?
Yeah, it's alright. I don't know. That's it. It was alright. It was good. I liked it.
For me, I think this is a really cool album. I think there's some slow bits, but I think there's some really strong bits too. And overall, I think it's well worth a listen.
It is well worth a listen.
I never expected Trivium to be the most controversial choice. I really thought this would go over a lot better than it did.
Me too, man. I think I just, I'm the reason I'm into metal is I'm a fairly extreme person, and I can't deal with something that feels middle of the road to me. It's just,
and do you know what? I think I'm starting to understand your frustration, because this is how I felt about Viljata that we did a couple of weeks ago. I didn't hate it, and I didn't love it, and it was in a very annoying mid-ground for me. And sometimes that's more frustrating.
Where it's just like, you could have done it! You could have done it!
You were so close!
Yeah, that's fair.
Alright, so that was episode 5 of the Metal Face podcast. We talked about Gruzja's album. Here we go again. Jeszcze, Mamy, Pomysłu. It got worse, didn't it? It got worse. We also talked about Keloid's Mounted on the Inch and the controversial choice of Trivium's Ascendancy.
Yeah, damn.
Whoa.
This was a tough one, guys.
Got a bit heated there at the end, didn't it?
That was a great week's listening to me. Like, I honestly...
Yeah, for sure.
I enjoyed listening to... I enjoyed checking out Keloid so much. I enjoyed talking to you guys about Gruzja. And I also enjoyed trying to wrap my head around what it is that makes me not vibe with Trivium.
That's fair.
Yeah, these were some hard choices. I think Gruzja was difficult for me. I knew I liked it, and I knew I didn't like it in parts, but it was very hard to put it into words. I just don't have the vocabulary, it turns out.
Yeah, it turns out we can't speak Polish.
Well, that too.
But it's difficult turning your feelings on a song, which are very emotional and very kind of bass and gut feeling into words, isn't it? Like, I often find it quite difficult.
Certainly can be, yeah. Yeah, it's... Well, we talked about the brainworm before, haven't we? Sometimes it just gets in there, and for me, Gruzja has gotten right in there, and I feel compelled to listen to it.
It's interesting that happens, isn't it?
Yeah. I hope that the more stuff we cover from each other's interest, we'll better understand why we like what we like and why we don't like what we like. Because sometimes it is really hard just to be able to say, I didn't like it, and tell me why. I can't.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. It's a difficult thing to do, isn't it? Because it's so innate. Yeah. It's so intrinsic. It's hard to say, like, because it's not like if they cut out the hey section from Gunshot, it would suddenly become a great album. It's hard to nail it down to these specific points. I'm not saying that, Tom, just to focus on you. It's just I often find this too, where like I'll like with Boss Keloid, or if I said, oh, change this, this, and this of the song. If they did that, I might not like it anymore. It's just what I think I'd like. Yeah. It's hard to kind of actually create in my mind the idea of better music.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, looking ahead to next week, what are we going to be talking about? Tom, what are you bringing along?
Well, so speaking of sharing in each other's genres, we're listening to Dying Fetus, Reign Supreme.
Oh boy.
What do you think? What? Give me your initial perception of what you think that might be like, Ben.
So I've actually never listened to Dying Fetus. I've probably heard a couple of songs here and there. I only know their reputation, and it precedes them, is all I'll say.
And Josh, I gotta say, my suspicion here, I feel like I will be surprised if you don't like Dying Fetus.
And this will be a shock, actually quite like Slam.
Oh, who doesn't like Slam, man?
I know, it's good. I know, it's weird because I feel like I on this podcast, I'm always, coming out for all the, like, metalcore type of genres and things, but I do really fucking like death metal.
Oh, yeah.
We've got to lean into our niches.
Oh, yeah. No, I love death metal, yeah.
So, Josh, what are you bringing next week?
I'm bringing May Our Chambers Be Full by Thou and Emma Ruth Rundle.
Wow, that's not something I've even ever heard of in the remotest, so that's cool.
It's interesting because Thou are they're quite influential in sludge, so there'll be some connections, I think, between Boss Keloid and Thou. And
great.
It's a really cool album. It's quite post-metal as well. Some of the parts are quite ambient.
Sounds really good, Josh.
Some parts are really heavy. Yeah, I think you guys will like it.
This is either going to be really good, or it's going to be that situation where it just misses and I'm going to get really angry.
Well, I'm excited for this. It sounds like we've got some really good stuff so far. What about you, Ben? What we dealing with?
Okay, so I've held off as long as I could. It was bound to happen. I'm bringing Tool.
Here we go.
I'm bringing.
No, God! I joke.
I was gonna have to bring Tool, but I've actually picked their oldest album, Opiate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know a couple of episodes ago I said I was going to bring their newest album later in the season.
Oh, yeah.
I've since changed my mind. I think the newest album is good, but I kind of want to show you why I like Tool so much, and I think the oldest album is actually a better place to start with that for the eventual, Tool album every season. We'll get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've held off on doing Anal Nafrak so far, so I guess I'll have to deal that right back at you.
Let's let loose.
So Ben, I actually have a CD copy of Opiate, which you gave to me at a album swap we went to a couple of years ago.
I forgot about that.
I was just trying to look for it. I thought it was on my shelf, but it's not there.
Do you mean the second seasonal Secret Santa CD swap social that me and Ben hosted when we were president and vice president of the Rock and Metal Society at Exeter University?
I believe I do.
Do you mean the sadly unsuccessful second seasonal CD Santa swap? Where about 5 people turned up.
Well, I got a cool album out of it, so I was happy, and I gave someone else Dream Theater. So
yeah, I felt like such an asshole because the first year that the society did that, I brought a joke album, which was like a 28 country hits or something that I got for like £1 at a pound shop, and I got in the swap, I got Evangelion.
Yeah, Tom,
I was like, oh, damn, I fucked up.
Tom, who ended up with that album? It was me.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
All right, guys.
And you're still friends.
Yeah, I think that was a good week, and I'm looking forward to next week.
Absolutely. All right, I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, talk to you next week, guys.
Cheers, guys.
See you guys. Bye. That was the Metal Face Podcast. Go follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for Season and Mist, Character Anger, and Separation for their music in the intro. And thank you to Johnny Peterson for transition music throughout. Go check out his projects at Heads for the Dead, Massacre, Wormvale, and Wombat. And most importantly, thank you for listening. Take it easy, and hail Satan.
The lady who offered to give me a homemade tattoo in America had a child, so...
I thought that was the start of the Trivium. The lady who created Trivium was called Matt Heafy.